So hello, dear ones, I'm here again as part of this series called Magic and Meaning Beyond Motherhood. And today I am here with a good friend of mine, with Amanda Yik. I'm actually so happy that we can have this conversation in my own home here in Hong Kong. Amanda and we met for the first time in 2015, where she joined my very first women's circle, women's temple ever. And from there, we stayed in touch. And then you joined us for the temple training in 2018. And out of that, we started to create temples together later on, this women circles experience for women here in Hong Kong. And Amanda, like me, she's child-free, and she lives a very magical and meaningful life, a life full of purpose as a child-free woman. And of course she has a story like we all have, and today we're going to hear a bit more about her story. So first of all, welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Beautiful. Beautiful to have you. Amanda is a transformational coach, and she's also a very skilled forest therapy forest therapy facilitator here in Hong Kong and beyond. So we will probably hear a little bit of that as well as we go along. Okay. So first, Amanda, I just always want to ask this question around, what is alive for you today or at this point in time?
A lot is alive. I'm very much in a space where I'm stepping into owning my kind of like writing the script for my future. After a lot of twists and turns, I've come to this place now where I am stepping into myself as a woman entrepreneur, which interestingly isn't where I started out to be, not really where I thought I would be. But yeah, life has taken me to this point where a lot is happening. I'm learning a lot. I'm experimenting with different things, and there are new things that are coming up every day that I am fascinated by. So yeah, I'm very much alive with that potential and that's kind of bubble of energy.
Yes. Female entrepreneur. Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. It's been interesting and fascinating also to watch your journey, from what led to what, and you have different skills and purposes, and how you kind of weave them all together as you go along, right? And so you said your story, like this is where your story brought you. And obviously none of us, we don't know what story life has in store for us, right? As we, grow older. And Amanda, can I ask your age?
Yes, I'm 43.
Yeah, 43. So same age, 42, soon to be 43. So we're also in that age group, where we are... it's also a different stage of womanhood that we are entering into. Well, so let's speak a little bit about the child-free life, also kind of nurturing, how you nurture maybe through your work, and how we see ourselves as these creatresses, how we create in other ways, like beyond procreation. Like what is your story around this topic that so many women, we come up, not against, but we come up, that it will come up at some point in our lives, you know, this question around motherhood and creating, and how do we want to create.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I never thought that I'm a creative person. Like, I was trained as a lawyer, so I started off in a very traditional profession, one that really honors tradition and, you know, hierarchy. So I never thought I was creative. And then it took me many years to realize that I really don't like being a lawyer. I mean, I can do it if I have to, but I don't enjoy doing it. So I went on this struggle for quite a while before I finally decided that no, I need to leave this profession. And then I think that's when I started to really feel like there is this opportunity to create. And this creation is not like a tangible thing. It's not like I'm a painter or a sculptor. It's the creative process of life, of, you know, what do I want to do, of what kind of life do I want to create, or what choices do I make and steer my life towards. So that's the creative process. And I mean, I can look back and say that that's a creative process, but in the middle of it, I didn't really realize that that's what I've been doing. And even that creative process of leaving law behind and then moving on to something else, that was a very windy path. So for me, that creative process is a lot about testing, trial and error, and asking a lot of questions to myself, doing a lot of self-reflection around whether it really feels right. And then finally I've moved down a path of, I love nature, I love the environment, but to begin with I didn't quite know what to do with it because I wasn't trained in those expertise. I don't have those expertise around environment or nature. So I started off, maybe I can do something around environmental law. It didn't work out. Maybe I could do something around corporate environmental responsibility. I did quite a bit of that, and in the end I felt like, no, that's still not what I wanted to do. And then that process, that creative process, became what I now feel like is a co-creative process, because life would throw this challenge at me at 2014. That's when I'm 36, 37. I was diagnosed with cancer, with ovarian cancer, out of the blue. Like, I thought I was very healthy. I thought I was living a very vibrant and active life, and I never had any serious illness. And then all of a sudden there's a really serious cancer, and ovarian cancer is quite a deadly cancer for women. So I was struck with that, and then everything stopped, and it really, now again looking back at it, it really gave me 2 years of a lot of inquiry into. So I was, you know, given this really serious illness, and I survived. So what do I want to do with my life now? And that is what I would call now a co-creative process, because obviously I didn't really create that illness that throws me into that space. I felt like that was something that spirit, you know, or God, or, you know, whatever higher power that lives out there, that they gave me that, you know, that power gave me that. So now there, you need to stop and really take a good hard look at, so what do you want from your life? And my current, you know, where I am right now, really, really officially started from that point. So that creative process took a spin, like took a turn in a slightly different direction. But it really, I think, brought me to a place of more alignment.
It's beautiful.
It's a pretty long story, but And a big part of having ovarian cancer is that, you know, I'm not going to have a biological child of mine. So it's got the complexities that I'm sure we're going to talk more about now.
Yeah. Well, first, I think it's just beautiful to see how you started to own the fact that you are creative, and not like, you know, the creativity is not about being a painter or being a singer or being a writer, right? There's creativity comes in there's so many different ways. Like, the creativity is much bigger, right? And how you started to own that as you went along in your 30s. And now, it
started in my 20s, actually.
It started in your 20s.
Yeah, but it was like a really windy path. It took many twists and turns. But it started quite early, actually.
Yeah. And now when that diagnosis came at 36, at that point, did you already decide before that, well, I don't want to have children, I'm not going to have children? Or was that something you were not sure about? Or how were you with that question of becoming a mother, having children, having a family?
I mean, I guess I would back then be what you would call ambivalent. Like, I wasn't really interested. I wasn't, I don't jump up and down thinking that, I want a child. No, I've never ever been like that. I think if I kind of need to pin it down right now, I think I'm definitely leaning more towards not wanting a child. I didn't know why, and I still can't say for sure why. I don't have that tendency or inclination that I see in so many of my friends and people around me. I just wasn't really keen on becoming a mother. And then I got married, and I was like, maybe I'll just leave it open and see what happens. But my cancer diagnosis actually came very shortly, like a year after I got married. So it's almost like the decision is made. No, you're not going to have a child of your own. I mean, unless I adopt a child. So it kind of it flowed from, no, I'm not sure, maybe not, to, nope. You don't have to worry about that now.
Yeah, and that feeling of nope, you don't have to worry about that now. How did that make you feel around that question, that big question of, do I want to be a mother or don't I want to be a mother?
I think that's a question that I'm still unraveling the layers of. Like, it's that kind of onion question that you live with, and you see layers and layers of it unfolding. So at the beginning, of course, I was just thrown into shock, right? With the diagnosis, I was really focusing on just staying alive and, getting well. Definitely not thinking about kids or, anything around that. And then I got better, treatment's over, and then I just kind of realized that, this is just not a question that I have to ask anymore. Am I going to have a child? Like, adopting a child is definitely not on my mind. I don't have any desire to go down that route. So I kind of sway between feeling relieved, that, okay, right, I don't have to actually worry about, I don't even have to think about it now, right? Because it's just not an option. To sometimes wondering, what would it be like if I actually do have a child? Like, sometimes I wonder. And not having any kind of sadness or grief around that. It's just, I wonder what it'd be like. Because so many of my friends around me have kids. And I would be like, looking at them with their kids, and, inside I might be asking myself, I wonder if I'm just like them, what would life be like? So it's just a curiosity around what might have been. So I kind of swing between these two state of mind. And I'm kind of still, I'm still looking into whether there's a hidden layer beneath that's kind of waiting to be found. Right? So I don't think there's a definitive answer to that.
Yeah, definitely there's so many layers to it. and it's constantly coming back to alignment, contemplating. Yeah, I can resonate with that.
And I guess definitely one thing that I can say is kind of what's happening on a daily basis is that because I don't have to worry about that, I don't even have to contemplate on that question of whether to have a child or not. It does actually free up a lot of my bandwidth to just focus on, so what I want to do with my life, right? That's the question that hit me when I was diagnosed. So I spent quite a bit of time just being grateful for being alive. And then what? So I could have died, but I didn't. So it's like an open book. It's like a blank canvas now. You have the rest of your life now, and you don't have to worry about whether you're going to have a child or not. So what are you going to do?
Yes, so and that's the question of where I think, how do you infuse life, well, with meaning and magic in other ways, like a lot of women who choose to become mothers, right? Motherhood is then also it's a vocation. There's obviously a lot of purpose in having children, raising children, and a lot of meaning. And so when you don't have children, you don't procreate in that way, there's that question of, okay, in what other ways is there meaning, and magic, you know, as you say, you have this white paper in front of you, how the magic of what are you gonna now do with your life, right?
Because there's a lot of energy that's kind of being unlocked in a way, right? When you're not using that energy or putting that into motherhood. So when
energy
that door,
energy,
time, resources, you know,
bandwidth,
emotional capacity, you know, all of that is kind of that open door. Now it's available to you. Then what's possible? So that's for me the living inquiry, like the living journey of like it's living that question. Yeah.
It's living that question, the living inquiry. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and going back to maybe, and you know that because I've been speaking about that a lot, I feel like as a woman who doesn't have children, we can mother, and with mother I mean we can nurture and care and be of service, because motherhood is a big service, right? In other ways. Yeah. And I have found a lot of meaning in the other ways of mothering, but also being aware that in these ways I still have, as to some degree, a control over when I do this. Whereas if you have a child, and you have a child 24 hours a day, and you're in service of that child, you can't always choose. It's not like, whereas I think when you don't have children, you can choose when are you going to go into more that mothering energy where I love to be in, but obviously not all the time. So how do you see yourself nurture, care, mother, protect, be in service? Because I know you are in so many other ways.
I think for me, just listening to you right now, I think there puts very simply, there are two aspects of that for me. One is the caring and nurturing, and for me, I actually direct a lot of that caring and nurturing to myself. I mean, naturally, of course, post-cancer, with like surgical menopause, with a kind of, like my body took a big hit. Right? So quite a bit of that caring and nurturing energy. It's not like I'm really nursing myself in terms of like I'm cooking for myself, like, not in that sense, but the energy of caring and nurturing, I just naturally had to use a lot of that on myself, just to kind of keep myself going, and it's almost like I really owe this to my body to do that. Like that's kind of my priority, my obligation, like it's almost my license to be on earth, to care for myself first and foremost. And just I think that really applies to everyone, that we should prioritize caring for ourselves, except that because I have had cancer, that became very, very clear to me. That's like my top priority. So yeah, the caring and nurturing, first and foremost to myself. And then the second part of what you were sharing is the creating part, or serving, actually, the service part. And I mentioned earlier that I love nature, and I was trying to find a way to kind of, you know, dedicate myself towards that path, right? What can I do for nature? And then, I mean, back then, and I'm talking about many years ago now, back then I can't really think of anything except, you know, things like environmental protection or conservation. But I really couldn't find my edge in it. Like, I just don't fit into that space. So, serendipitously, what's the right word? Like, coincidentally, because of my cancer, I had to, I actually got to spend a lot of time in outdoors, in nature, as part of my recovery, as part of my resting and recovery. And because of that, I was able to...
Rio? Yeah, we have a dog here. Okay, sit.
No.
Come here. Okay, sorry.
Yay,
let's keep going. And because of that,
I actually get to spend quite a bit of time in nature, but in a very different way. In a way that is much more quiet, much more healing, and actually, you know, being outside, but then going inwards quite a bit. So it's a very different way of being in nature than I'm used to or than I know. So somehow I did some research, and then I found that there's something called forest therapy. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, this whole description around forest therapy sounds really familiar. Like, it really sounds like what I experienced as I was recovering from cancer. So I became intrigued, and I started thinking maybe I can, you know, learn something about this and, you know, see how it goes. I wasn't really thinking of kind of starting working in this field back then, but, you know, I went to a 6-month training. I, you know, somehow from that training, I felt like, wow, this actually feels really nice. This feels quite natural to me. Like, I feel like I can do it, and I enjoy doing it. And it's something that I've never done before. I've never heard of the term forest therapy before, even. So I wasn't really dreaming about doing this, but as I was doing more and more of it, I was like, this is actually bringing a lot of different things together for me. Working for nature, in nature, and I really see this work as service to nature, to the earth, because I'm reconnecting people with nature. I'm bringing people out from the busy streets of the city into, you know, nature, into the green. And that became a very nourishing experience for me, which is fantastic because I get to surf at the same time feeling nourished. So that's kind of how I, you know, after many twists and turns, I've actually found what I wanted to find through a pathway that was, that was totally unexpected.
Yeah, and so it's also really that from nurturing and caring for yourself, your own body, your body temple, to then learning to teaching others how to get nurtured.
To nurture themselves.
And
at the same time serving and to be of service to the earth.
Service to the earth, yeah.
So that the creative process that we were talking about.
Yeah.
That's how I feel like it's a co-creative process. So I'm only partly I'm only partly in control. I'm kind of like co-writing this script with the universe, the forest, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, like that's what's possible for me with the that unfortunate diagnosis. But then it really took me to that place of this is what you can focus on now in your life, like to nourish and be nourished and to create. And with this work that I'm doing, it also takes me to a place of a lot of creativity, because this is still very new. This work is still very new. So there are many different opportunities for me to come up with different ways of offering it, of maybe engaging people, of maybe doing a little bit of education around it. And then just trying to see what works best for me. And after having been a guide for over 3 years now, I'm more moving on to a training role, so training other people to be a guide. So it's the script is continuing to be written, and I'm kind of just going along with what feels most alive, most the easiest way. I'm trying to kind of follow the rules of nature and just go the easiest way. And it's fun. So
there's a lot of joy in your life as a woman who doesn't have children, right?
There's I mean, and I wouldn't just say that it's all fun. Like
no.
there are definitely things that every decision has a set of different consequences, right? So we talked about how sometimes thinking ahead, we would wonder what happens when we get older, when we don't have kids. To the lighter side of it would be, then how do we spend Christmas or New Year, like if we don't have kids to spend with. And then maybe the heavier or the more worrying side would be, what if I fall sick, and who do I turn to? Like, these are very real questions as someone who doesn't have a child, that we have to kind of find ways to live with. But then so that's that's what I mean by it's not just all fun, like as in everything in life, it's not just fun, but then there's a lot of possibilities and potential to explore that is just very different from being a mother. And there's I don't think one is better than the other. It's just a different path.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that point that you just spoke to, that is something that I had to, we talked about that just before when I came. Like, I really had to look some fear in the eye that I had about, down the road when I'm 50 or 60, and I decided, on my journey, this is it now. I'm gonna now surrender just to the child-free life. There were these fears that we had to face. And again, once in a while, there are layers, new layers of that. Yes. So no, it's definitely not just all fun. Far from it, right?
And I remember telling you too that because so many of my friends have kids, that there is some kind of I think maybe a distance. Like there are things that I can't relate to, right? When my friends talk about their kids' life, their school life, and all the plans that they're making with their kids, their holidays look very different from mine. So there are times when I do think that it almost feels like I don't get to spend that much time with my friends, like these friends who have kids anymore, because our life are quite different. So and on the other side, I make other friends. So there's always this give and take. But for me, it's really just, and again, this brings me back to that whole experience around encountering a serious illness, is just to see what's available, despite whatever, maybe it's something that's, maybe it's not something that lights you up, but there is still a lot of possibilities and meaning and joy to be had. It's whether we direct our energy in that direction, and whether we kind of look for those possibilities and cultivate and nourish those those structures that allow us to tap into these possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think your story also, you know, the way it unfolded, there's obviously lots of women, you know, with, you know, reproductive challenges, like, or illnesses, seriously illnesses, or, you know, or autoimmune diseases that make them realize, well, I need time to heal myself. I need to care for myself, and this maybe is not the best time right now to venture into motherhood, or maybe or it will never be. And then along the road, new things come, possibilities we then go into, and magic, like really, like the magic unfolds if we are open to it. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's what we do as Childfree Women, I think, really gives permission for other women to consider more deeply around what they want in their life as women living in this day and age. Right? So somehow we can, I mean, I'm not saying, oh, because I'm child free now, there's, you know, suddenly this role model that I become. Not at all. It's just that we do, the way we live our lives then is something that might potentially offer a different perspective. That maybe women who haven't been exposed to these perspectives before, then they suddenly have this opportunity to see, oh, wait a second, there are other ways of, you know, owning our womanhood beyond becoming a mother. So I think it's really important to have that option.
Yes.
So that we can actually make a choice, that we don't just accidentally fall into the well-traveled path of becoming a mother.
Yeah, it's like it's a bit like having more like we're having these conversations. Really, like my like intention behind having these conversations is to show different ways of living beyond procreating, and how that can look, and how that, because these lives are often not featured, or these stories are not so much told. And I want to start telling women, you know, it's about the full story, so everyone can make informed decisions on what is true for them or not. Because this is that the decision whether a woman wants to become a mother and have children should be only hers alone. And so this is we could talk about this forever. But we won't. But Amanda, I just have one question before we wrap this up. What would you say to a woman who maybe is like now listening, who is in this place of, well, not sure if she wants children, not decided yet on it, or she maybe has tried to have a child for many years and it hasn't happened, or maybe she has been diagnosed with like an illness, how you were, like, what would you want her to know this point in time?
I guess with my experience as well, what I would love for women, in fact, of all ages and background, to know that it's...
Sorry, Rio, no, don't go this way. Sorry, a second. Okay, again.
I would love for all women to know that it's okay to focus on caring for yourself.
Yes.
And that in itself is a beautiful thing to do, because when we care for ourselves, when we prioritize our own well-being, then we become this vessel for more beautiful things to come, that that can be in any shape or form, whether it's a child or not, and that almost comes, I think, as the next thing. The first thing needs to be to care for ourselves, and know that it's okay.
Mm-hmm. And know that it's okay, and know that having to feel guilty about it.
And in fact, know that that in itself is a beautiful thing to do. Like, we need to celebrate that. We need to celebrate prioritizing our own well-being, and whatever comes out of that, it's it can be anything, and it's there's endless possibilities.
Yeah, beautiful, because that's fertile ground.
Yeah.
When we care for ourselves, for our well-being, that is fertile ground that's created, and out of that fertile ground,
tilling the soil so that when you plant the seeds in that beautiful fertile soil, then whatever you plant, it's going to be beautiful, right? It's going to blossom and be beautiful, healthy plant or tree or flowers, whatever it is, but the soil is the most important. So tending to that soil, tending to ourselves at whatever age, whether you want a child or not, that's okay.
It's important, not just okay.
And beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, it was a pleasure to have this conversation with you, Amanda. If our listeners want to get in touch with you, how can they best get in touch with you? I will also put it obviously into the show notes and the links, but how can they get in touch with you best?
So the easiest way is to go to my website, which is just my name, www.amandayik.com, and you'll get all the contact details and whatnot, my story, so you can find out more about me there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and to all of you, that was Amanda Yik, as part of this series around finding magic and meaning beyond motherhood. And I look forward to check in with all of you soon again. Okay, goodbye.